Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we are going to completely demystify the absolute ultimate state of human performance. We're bridging the gap between what honestly looks like anime superpowers and hard, real-world psychology. If you've ever watched a character absolutely detach from their conscious mind to perform literal miracles and thought, wait, is that actually possible? Well, you are in the exact right place. So, I want you to think about this for a second. Have you ever been doing something really difficult? Maybe playing an instrument, driving, or writing some intense code, and your brain just kind of shuts off. Suddenly, hours have passed and your body was just flawlessly executing on pure autopilot. It's a crazy feeling, right? How does the human brain actually pull off that level of automatic perfection? Well, here's our roadmap for today to figure that out. We're going to break down unconscious instinct, dive into the actual science of flow, figure out how to find that balance, look at some real-world flow states, and finally, we've got to talk about the dark side of all this. All right, let's jump straight into part one, unconscious instinct and decoding the Lookism phenomenon. Okay, so we're kicking things off in the totally fictional, absolutely brutal world of the hit webtoon Lookism. Fans of the series fiercely debate this crazy mental state called UI, or unconscious instinct. It's fascinating because on one side, you've got a guy like Gun. His Yamazaki bloodline gives him this baseline UI, essentially giving him hypervisual acuity and a flat 100% strength buff. But then on the other side, you've got the protagonist, Daniel. His acquired UI is totally different. It's all about perfect response adaptation. He isn't just buffed, he's dynamically adjusting and copying absolute perfection. The community really hit the nail on the head here. They pointed out that Daniel's specific software, think of it like his internal mental programming, acts as this flawless, unconscious response system during a fight. He literally does not think about his next move. His body just automatically reacts with the absolute perfect counter. It's effortless, thoughtless, and completely devastating. But here's where fiction shakes hands with reality. This isn't just some cool trope invented for a comic. Which brings us to part two, the science of flow, or basically unconscious instinct in the real world. Stepping out of the comic book and into the lab, this superpower actually exists. It's a scientifically measured state, and in psychology, it's called flow. Back in 1975, a pioneering Hungarian-American psychologist named Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi presented this concept. Flow is defined as a mental state where you are fully immersed in this feeling of energized focus. It's the absolute melting together of action and consciousness. Kind of sounds exactly like what Daniel does, right?
Now, to actually trigger flow, a few specific, really vital components have to click together. You need this intense, laser-like focus on the present moment, to the point where your actions and your awareness become one single thing. But the most crucial part? The total loss of reflective self-consciousness. You aren't thinking about yourself doing the task anymore. You literally become the task. Time completely distorts. Hours feel like minutes.
But mechanically, how does our brain even do this? Well, it all comes down to a hard biological limit. Our brains, as amazing as they are, max out at processing about 110 bits of information per second. That's the cap. Think about that 110-bit limit for a second. Just decoding speech, just listening to someone talk to you, eats up like 60 bits a second. So when you are 100% locked into a complex task, whether you're fighting for your life or writing a complex algorithm, you are maxing out that bandwidth. Because all 110 bits are fully allocated, your brain simply runs out of room to process anything else. You literally lose the biological capacity to feel hunger, register fatigue, notice the time passing, or even feel pain. It's this automatic resource allocation that perfectly mirrors Daniel's unconscious instinct. And the wild thing is, the physical changes are entirely measurable. There was this absolutely fascinating study done on professional classical pianists. It proved that entering this effortless state genuinely changes the body. As they played these incredibly complex pieces and dropped into flow, their heart rates actually went down. Their blood pressure dropped. Their major facial muscles completely relaxed. Despite this massive physical and mental output, the body enters a state of serene efficiency. Okay, part three, finding the balance and the anatomy of the zone. So how do we actually hack our biology to get here on purpose? Well, it's a giant balancing act. Csikszentmihalyi mapped this out perfectly. If a challenge is way too high and your skill is low, you just get extreme anxiety. On the flip side, if your skill is super high but the challenge is low, you're just bored out of your mind. But when you perfectly match a really high challenge with a high level of skill, boom, That is the exact doorway to the flow state. You basically have to stretch yourself right to the absolute edge of your abilities. Moving right along to part 4, real-world flow states. For martial arts to motorsports and even writing code. We're not just talking about lab studies here. We're talking about historical greatness out in the real world. Listen to this from Formula One legend Ayrton Senna, talking about his qualifying lap for the 1988 Monaco Grand Prix. He said he realized he wasn't driving the car consciously anymore. He was driving by pure instinct, like he was in a different dimension, stuck in a tunnel. He ended up being 2 seconds faster than anyone else on the track. Senna perfectly described driving purely instinctually, sounding exactly like a webtoon character dropping into unconscious instinct. But hey, it's not just for elite athletes risking their lives out there. We can actually quantify this zone in the digital world too. Software engineers are always talking about being in the zone, and we can vividly see this by looking at public data, like the GitHub profile of front-end engineer Younggun Park. Check out these massive, honestly superhuman daily commit spikes mapped out on his contribution graph. May 19th, 115 commits. June 9th, hit 155. And June 13th, peaked at an unbelievable 159 commits in a single day. This right here is a quantifiable visualization of a developer deeply locked into coding flow. To get that kind of sustained output, the developer's brain has to shut out literally all distractions, maxing out that 110-bit bandwidth purely on architecture and problem solving. But we've got to talk about part 5, the dark side, and the actual cost of ultimate focus. Look, hacking your brain to unlock this ultimate potential, it is definitely not without risk. Just like characters in webtoons suffering massive physical backlash from overusing their powers, real-world flow has a heavy cost. The very psychologist who defined it explicitly warned us. Csikszentmihalyi noted that because flow produces such an intense ecstatic feeling, it can easily become an addiction. Becoming so captivated by this optimal experience can actually turn you into its captive, making you totally unwilling to deal with normal everyday life. This dark side is no joke. We're talking severe burnout and a hyper-focus that is actually detrimental to your life. Because your brain stops processing basic signals like hunger or fatigue, people in deep flow can easily neglect their overall well-being. This behavioral addiction can literally cause you to ignore your personal life, your relationships, and your physical health, all just to chase that frictionless, perfectly productive high. So as we wrap up this explainer, we've gone all the way from superhuman webtoon fights to the literal bandwidth limits of the human brain. Think about the stuff you do in your own life that makes you completely lose track of time. The real question isn't just whether you can find your flow, it's whether you have the discipline to step into your own unconscious instinct without letting it completely consume you. Find your edge, balance that skill and challenge, and I will see you in the next explainer.